Is LeBron James on steroids? Well, I believe so.
Way. Super washed, ain't he? Up and away. Super washed, ain't he? Stay low and keep firing. The air up there is a tad bit different. Live, laugh, love. This is LeBron James's Instagram caption to a photo of him dunking against the Charlotte Hornets, en route to a 27.9 assist game. It was his last game of his first season as a Laker, and he'd averaged 27.4 points, 8.3 assists, and 8.5 rebounds, with the second leading scorer being 21-year-old Brandon Ingram. And of course, this was 7 years ago. Aside from the infamous F-retweet that somehow lost its relevance before LeBron lost his on the court, there weren't too many people putting LeBron, Ramon James, and the concept of washed together. However, the first questions of whether or not Father Time would defeat LeBron came in that first season with the Lakers, where he suffered his first major injury on Christmas Day in 2018. But since then, he's won a championship, averaged over 30 points a game in a season, played with his son on an NBA court, and is the first option on a playoff team at age 41.
41?
Is he on steroids? Find out this time on Keep Calm at 11.
Didn't Paul George get kicked out because he was on something like that?
LeBron James is, as we all know, a genetic freak, an NBA caliber player by the age of 16. He's a 6'8", 250-pound behemoth that sometimes played at 280 pounds and had his max vertical clocked in at 44 inches in his prime. From a pure athleticism standpoint, there is nothing that another player in the NBA has, can, or will do that prime LeBron could not. But what might somehow be more impressive than his peak athleticism is how much of it he's been able to retain over the 2 decades that he's been in the league. One of the most impressive feats in NBA history came at the age of 31 for him, which may not seem old now, but a decade ago is considered the start of the hashtag decline. There are only 3 All-Stars older than LeBron that season, which was 10 years ago, by the way. Dwayne Wade at 34, Pau Gasol at 35, and retirement tour Kobe Bryant. None of them known remotely at that point for the athleticism, naturally. It was evident also in the performance of his age mates, Chris Paul, Chris Bosh, and Carmelo Anthony. Bosh, due to medical reasons, played his last game in 2016. Melo had one.
Didn't Chris Bosh have like blood clots or something?
More All-Star year before turning into a role player. Chris Paul is Chris Paul, but before his resurgence with OKC, he was considered a buyout candidate not remotely worth the max deal. LeBron, who at 41 could still command the max, obviously didn't have that problem. And if we're being honest here, LeBron James is the greatest player ever, based strictly off longevity. I mean, we're talking about a guy who came into the league as a teenager.
How old is he? 12? He just turned 19 on
He said 12.
Became a top 10 player in the world by the age of 20, and stayed as a top 10 player for 20 years after that. He holds the record for playoff games played, playoff wins, points, assists, and steals, regular season wins, points, and yes, more minutes played than anyone in NBA history. Who cares that he's gone 4-6 and Michael's gone 6-0? Who cares about the 2011 finals performance, which was 15 years ago, by the way? Who cares if MJ had the killer mentality? At the end of the day, Jordan could not do what LeBron has done. Which then I think leads us pretty naturally into our next question. Is LeBron on steroids? Is there a singular person on this earth, seriously, who's lived, living now, and will live that could accomplish a 2-decade run like LeBron has? Weigh over 250 pounds and compete over 100 times a year at an average of 2 miles a game, running, dunking, getting contact in, pivoting, blocking against the world's best athletes? And even if they could, would that be all natural? Of course, we don't have the answer to this question.
Of course not.
Anyone who could, if they said it, would have the black trucks at their door within the day. But that said, there are some clues that are too convincing to just wave off. Before we get to that though, let's talk about it. What is a steroid in the first place? Well, let's get chemical. A steroid is an organic compound that is an essential biological molecule for life. They help tell the body what to produce. For example, estrogen, which develops feminine characteristics in the body, and testosterone, which develops male characteristics in the body, are steroids. By the way, this is grossly oversimplified. What we know as steroids are actually anabolic steroids, which are artificial compounds that mimic natural signaling. That is, if you're an athlete, you take anabolic steroids to trick the body into thinking that it has more testosterone. And your body responds by, if you work out, giving you noted increases in muscle size, strength, and performance. Now, while steroids are the most famous example, there are other ways to improve performance as well, like
Don't clavicle take this too? I keep calling him clavicular.
Peptides, and the term to cover them all is performance enhancing drugs, or PEDs. And the act of taking PEDs is known as doping. To find out what pro athletes actually take, I spoke with the Chief Science Officer of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, Dr. Matthew Fedoruk.
It's not just anabolic steroids. It's protein hormones and growth factors. It's growth hormone. It's beta-2 agonists and inhalers. It's diuretics.
So the question is now, why are PEDs banned? Well, who better to ask than the doctor?
We want to preserve the integrity of the sport, and I think fans and athletes themselves want to see a level playing field. They want to see the athletes performing at their best, but they don't want to see athletes that are just performing based on who has the best pharmacological advantage or the best doctor that's giving them drugs in order to perform better. And it also, reduces sport to, just pure entertainment. And although there's an entertainment value behind sport, I think sport is more meaningful than that. And both athletes and fans deserve to see, a level playing field and healthy athletes out there.
The NBA explicitly bans over 200 compounds.
Dang.
From coke to tramadol, a severe pain medication that got Bobby Portis suspended 25 games a few years back. Among those are a host of peptides and steroids that stimulate the production of testosterone, as well as other compounds that augment performance.
You can imagine that if you're taking an anabolic steroid, well, it may not just help you improve your strength and power, say in the weight room, or make your muscles more effective, but it also may help of preventing fatigue. Other performance enhancing drugs may help you with your endurance and allow you to play longer on that field of play, or it may help you recover between games.
Despite there being a host of drugs that are banned from the NBA, with the thousands of players that have came and went since the NBA started testing in 1999, there have only been 13 players caught using them. Now, does that mean that there have been 13 players in the existence of the NBA to ever use them? Well, let's think logically.
Isn't LeBron James in the Illuminati? So of course they're not going to take him out because he's the peak of the NBA, right? Please, no black trucks to my house. Take that out. Edit that out, please.
Whenever that poses direct financial incentive to better performance, less than 0.6% of them have used them to better their performance. Let's turn our attention now to the 2011 Track and Field World Championships. Out of the 440 athletes who competed, just 2 tested positive for PEDs, which just happens to be 0.5%, which is about the same for the NBA. But now here's the kicker. In a study commissioned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, the athletes that competed in the 2011 Worlds were given an anonymous survey that compelled them to admit whether or not they'd used PEDs. And 43.6% of them said that they had. This isn't an anomaly either. In 1985, before PED testing existed in American sports leagues, there was a Sports Illustrated article that detailed the rampant use of steroids in the NFL at the time. In the article, estimates from players that were interviewed on the percentage of players that did PEDs in the NFL ranged from 40 to 90%. It wasn't just hearsay either. In a study that interviewed over 2,500 former NFL players in the early 2000s, 9.1% of them admitted to using anabolic steroids during their career, and that number rose to 20% for players that played in the 80s. Now, the NBA started testing for PEDs in 1987 and suspending players in 1989. Since then, there have been 250 player suspensions from the NFL for PEDs. Major League Baseball, of course, was also busted in a big way in the 2000s.
Oh yeah, Aaron Hernandez.
It's safe to say that not everyone is getting caught. Why?
It was him, right? Aaron Hernandez.
Keeps me up at night, and one of the challenges that we're seeing in the use of doping substances is you can imagine that if you're taking a synthetic steroid, for example, if that steroid doesn't occur naturally in our bodies, then that's going to be relatively easy to detect. But what some athletes are doing now is they're actually using substances that our bodies produce naturally and using more of those synthetic substances in order to enhance their performance. So a good example of that is a blood boosting drug called EPO. So EPO is erythropoietin. It's used by endurance athletes. It's actually been developed as a drug, so it's used to treat ill people that maybe can't produce red blood cells. But starting in the 90s, this drug was came out onto the market, and even before it was on the market, it was being used by cyclists and other endurance athletes to dope.
In 2012, ESPN put out a story where the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, called out the NBA for its, quote, gaps in PED testing. During the doping scandal that embroiled baseball, David Stern was called to testify before Congress, where he declared in a statement that illicit substances that could assist athletes in strength sports or endurance sports are not likely to be of benefit to NBA players, largely because of this reasoning, and the public's conviction that NBA players were clean. The NBA's anti-doping tests had gaps. The MLB and NFL weren't as bad, according to WADA, but still not as strong as they would have liked. At the time, there had been 4 NBA players that had been caught with substances that could be classified as performance enhancers, and 2 of them were from Darius Miles and Lindsey Hunter taking a mid-2010s version of Ozempic. The other 2 were Rashard Lewis, who took an over-the-counter pill, and OJ Mayo, who drank a gas station energy drink. They were all suspended 10 games.
What?
For all intents and purposes, like NBPA President Billy Hunter proclaimed in 2012,
I firmly believe that the use of steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs is virtually non-existent, and I quote, non-existent in the NBA.
but that's not what Derrick Rose thought. In 2011, ESPN the magazine asked several professional athletes how big illegal enhancing was in their sport on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being everyone's juicing. D. Rose was one of the players who was asked, and he said 7. It's huge, and I think we need a level playing field where nobody has that advantage over the next person. Shortly after the article was published, D. Rose came out and said, in a statement released through the Bulls, regarding the quote attributed to me in ESPN the magazine, I do not recall making the statement, nor do I recall the question being asked. If that was my response to any question, I clearly misunderstood what was asked of me.
Maybe that's why he got so many injuries, because he was trying to keep up with everything and they kept making him play for so long, and then Derrick Rose's body just couldn't handle it because he don't take that type of stuff, and so he just got so many injuries because of that.
But let me be clear,
That's
I do
tough,
not believe
Derek.
there is a performance-enhancing drug problem in the NBA. He added later, if there was a drug problem, we get tested 4 times, so it'd definitely show up or something. There's definitely not a drug problem in the NBA. Former NBA player John Sally, on an all-encompassing interview with DJ Vlad TV, was asked about D. Rose's initial quote.
Did he know what it was?
Later on, he said, I do not recall making the statement, nor do I recall the question being asked. If that was my response to any question, I clearly misunderstood
Yeah,
what was asked of me.
yeah, because he didn't know what it was.
Okay.
Henry Abbott, the reporter who published a story on WADA for ESPN and the head of ESPN's print and digital team from 2014 to 2019, said otherwise.
I think he was telling the truth. Of course he was. Like, what? Explain to me. It's just impossible for me to imagine the thought process by which a player would have a whoopsie responding to a journalist about how many out of 10 concern they have about doping in the NBA, right? Like, everybody knew he was telling the truth, right? And then, they'll walk it back. Well, that's where the real story is, right? The scandals and the cover-up, right? Like, who calls Derek to say that he's wrong about the game that he plays for a living?
The next question that Vlad asked Sally was about George Karl, former coach of the Denver Nuggets, who, in his book Furious George, accused players of taking PEDs, despite, I should say, not having any concrete evidence, which he admits.
It's obvious some of our players are doping. How are some guys getting older, yet thinner and fitter? How are they recovering from injuries so fast? Why the hell are they going to Germany in the off-season? I doubt it's for the sauerkraut. More likely, it's for the newest, hard-to-detect blood boosters and PEDs they have in Europe. Unfortunately, drug testing has always been a couple of steps behind the drug hiding. Lance Armstrong never failed a drug test. I think we want the best athletes to succeed, not the biggest, richest cheaters employing the best scientists. But I don't know what to do about it.
Okay, I love Joe, but this is the deal. One, when you went to Germany, you get PRP, where they take your blood out, spin it, oxidize it, put it back into the joint area, helping healing faster. For you not
that's
to
what they
want
be doing?
science to do greatness on keeping this unbelievable avatar going, you're crazy. If you're not hurting anybody, you should do that. They wouldn't say anything if Tom Cruise took steroids. They didn't say anything when Sylvester Stallone would have taken steroids or Arnold Schwarzenegger would have taken steroids. If it's to keep them to entertain people, they really don't care about us. So whatever you have to do or whatever you do to maintain your ability, as Ocho Cinco's saying, the ability to provide, because that's the most unbelievable stress, you should do it. And if other guys are not up on the new joints, they lose.
Make of that what you will. In another Vlad interview, former NBA player Sebastian Telfair was asked whether or not he saw any other NBA players taking steroids.
Steroids?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No. Vlad, I was in the NBA, you feel me? So I was in the room, but it's another curtain that you gotta get behind. You feel me?
Right.
They ain't letting me behind that other curtain. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
He won't up there. You gotta ask ask Shaq or somebody.
Vlad, boy, you don't give me.
Am I right though?
You want to get me to the shit. And I don't really
Rampant.
some conversations I don't want to be in the middle of.
In 2013, a former employee of the anti-aging clinic Biogenesis, irritated because of an unpaid loan, turned over boxes of documents to the Miami New Times, which contained handwritten nicknames of baseball players linking them with the purchase of steroids, more specifically HGH, or human growth hormone. The MLB bought the documents from the New Times and sued the CEO of the clinic, Anthony Bosch, which parlayed into the suspensions of 13 players in the MLB.
Dang.
Including Alex Rodriguez for an entire season. But it
I thought his Alex Hernandez. Was he the dude that off somebody? I be getting people mixed up in baseball because I don't really watch baseball like that.
wasn't just MLB players that were going to the clinic. The disgruntled former employee, Peter Fisher, told ESPN that athletes from the NBA, NCAA, pro boxing, tennis, and MMA were all buyers of the PEDs. But the MLB was
NCAA, that's college.
the only league to pursue investigations.
Right.
An independent news outlet at the time, IBN Sports Report, interviewed an alleged assistant of the company who, according to the interviewer, who goes by the name Incarcerated Bob, was in charge of keeping pretty much every financial transfer at Biogenesis. Here's the interview. What names stood out to you? LJ, JN, Francisco, Cruz? These were the names that you just had and were told to put in the books? Yes. How did that work? Would money come in? Did Mr. Bosch tell you to put some initials in the box? Yes. Like LJ, someone named Mr. Paul would come in and
LeBron James.
Mr. Bosch would give a check to put in the book LJ as being paid for the month. Now, you also said a JN. Who did that stand for? Jameer Nelson. How do you know
Jameer Nelson.
JN is Jameer Nelson? Well, he came into the office. So you're saying Jameer Nelson came in person? Yes. What did he take? Did he
my
make a payment?
gosh.
Yes, he took product.
You shouldn't have came in person, bro. You should do what LeBron did. Just pay it over the
Did he
phone or
actually
something.
pay? Yeah, he paid in cash. Now, again, the name of the interviewer here is Incarcerated Bob, so we could probably take this with a grain of salt. But in documents unveiled by ESPN in 2023, it was found that Randy Mims, another LeBron James associate, and David Alexander, a trainer affiliated with LeBron, were also found taking PEDs from Biogenesis. Investigators, however, found no wrongdoing from LeBron. Jameer Nelson has never publicly tested positive for PEDs. LeBron James, as well, has never tested positive, nor have there been any accusations of him taking steroids. Well, actually, there is one.
That might be the best Brown we ever seen. I ain't gonna lie.
He was on steroids, bro. He had to sit out. He was on steroids for real.
Now I give you
Like legit was on steroids, bro. Allegedly, but like he had to sit out. But y'all remember when they told him like they
there goes the Clutch Sports allegations.
Y'all remember that though? No. But they was like he got everybody. They started testing for HGH, and they was like, yo, and he had to sit out. Like he said his back was hurt, and he sat out for like 3 weeks, and he came back skinny. This is just I was in the league. I remember. And he came back in. He was crazy though.
Bro, ain't that Jeff Teague, bro? He know what he talking about. He kind of like he not like a superstar, but he kind of on the all-star level, bro. He probably know what the freak he talking about.
Jeff is referring to is when LeBron was coming into the 2014 season for his first year as a Cavalier once more. He was skinny, incredibly skinny, much more than he had ever looked, which was credited to a new diet that had slimmed out the frame. However, the weight did not fit him well at all, and the Cavaliers were struggling. LeBron was not himself. And in the beginning of calendar year 2015, he announced that he would be taking a mid-season 3-week break to Miami. After 3 weeks, he returned and looked completely refreshed. In his first game back against the Phoenix Suns, he had 33 points in 37 minutes. And halfway through the game, off of his own missed free throw and a rebound from Sean Marion, he had this putback dunk.
Missed it though.
Damn.
23, erasing his own mistake.
Physically
Athlete's looking pretty good right now. I would say so.
He said after the game, "I haven't felt like this in a long time. I wasn't doing this before I took the rest." It was in that year, in April, where the NBA had announced, finally in the eyes of the anti-doping agencies, that they were introducing HGH blood tests, quoted by an expert in the LA Times as being about 1,000 times easier to detect than the standard urine testing at the time. Now, is it possible that these events are related? I'm not sure, and to be honest with the information that we have, it doesn't make much sense. LeBron was dealing with back issues before he took the recovery time, and the HGH blood test was announced for next season. And it doesn't take HGH that long at all to get out your system, so. And all of that's on top of the fact that this was announced after the season ended. But a day or two later, Jeff Teague walked back on his statements.
It was a joke, bruh. That people like, how did you know he was on steroids? I didn't know. I don't know. I don't care. Because if he was and I knew, I would have told that nigga give me some.
I would have tapped in.
I would have been 6'3", 285 too, nigga, running like a Mack truck. Like,
if you had a recipe, there would be no club pops on you right
no,
now.
I wish I had the recipe. Like, matter of fact, if you got some, bro, tap in.
Send the remix.
I'm ready to make a comeback.
You know it's true. Whenever they redact whatever they say, like what Derrick Rose did, it's true.
Shit, me, John Wall, send it all of us. Shit, we trying to get.
He got scared. Probably LeBron heard it and was like, "Nah, bro, you got to take this down. We gonna do something."
No, you too old. You gonna fall apart.
There is one other accusation that came from Kevin Garnett, who said this.
Come on, that little dude explosive, bro.
He is, but you seen his dad? His dad on that Balco. He on that new juice.
Balco is short for Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative,
He on
which
that
was a
new
PED
juice.
provider for many athletes. Its most famous client being Barry Bonds. The founder and operator of Balco, Victor Conti, said this about PED testing in the 2024 Paris Olympics.
The drug testing that they are doing now before the 2024 Olympics has got all sorts of loopholes in it, and it is very easy for the athletes to use PEDs. They have in-competition tests and out-of-competition tests. During the out-of-competition, they don't even test for about 80 stimulants and narcotics. So you can use all these drugs in training, but they only test for them at the competition. So right there's a loophole you can drive a Mack truck through.
Those loopholes also exist in the NBA.
Mostly, I would say that the NBA is super competent at stuff. Like if you want to fix up an international arena for All-Star game, whatever, like they know how to do this stuff, right? So I just assumed they were competent with the testing too. So when the Lance Armstrong thing blew up, I was like, wow, this is. I'm friends with this guy Dan Coyle, who wrote the book The Secret Race, which was kind of the book of doping and cycling. I didn't like read that book. I studied that book. It was a how-to of doping, which was fascinating. Which meant it was
Not a
also
how-to
of doping testing. I was kind of attuned to the idea that there might be a little trouble in the NBA with doping. Now that the how-to manual is published and a bestseller and in bookstores globally, let's just see. I thought I was calling them to give them a chance to brag about how they would have caught Lance Armstrong, right? How their system's better. So I called to say this is the topic, and they've often done this where they'll put you on a conference call with a number of people. Literally, I don't know if I'm allowed to say who was there, but not the commissioner, but just about as good, right? Like, I'm gonna guess there were 5 or 6 people on that call, top people, and I'm rolling out facts they've never heard before. It was pretty clear. I know a lot more about doping than they do. One of the ones that stood out to me was, there's a part in the book where the dopers come to test Lance Armstrong. I think the way that it works is they show up unannounced and they're going to test not the whole team, but like some members of the team. The tester's like, hey, I'm here for Lance Armstrong and a teammate. And they're like, well, here's the teammate. And during the short time they were testing the teammate, they were able to infuse Lance Armstrong with a pint of saline and he passed the test. The point of this being that 5
the saline can flush it out.
Was sufficient advance notice to pass a drug test. I don't think I'd brought up that part yet, that story, when I was meeting the NBA, but they were like, oh, these tests are totally impossible to beat. Like, the tester lands, then he just calls the team when he lands and says, hey, I'm here. I'm going to need these 4 guys. And then they call the 4 guys to make sure they're going to come in. And then they're tested within 5 or 6 hours. I'm like, oh. It's not great. That's not great, Bob. Not
at all.
6 hours.
As we can tell by this cycling example, it's not hard at all to flush PEDs out your system. And Henry's reporting was from over a decade ago. It's even easier now.
The big loophole they have now is that these whereabouts failures, which is where they come to not test you and you just lie on your kitchen floor and pretend, get really quiet and pretend that you're not home. Like that system would work pretty well in the NBA now.
Right now, which was collectively bargained by the league and the Players Association, it says that if your dope test collector comes to your home unannounced in the offseason and you're not there, quote unquote, or you refuse flat out to just take it, they just leave and fine you. $1,000 for 1 day late, $2,000 for 2 days late, up to $5,000 for 5 days late, and later on. Basically, if you refuse to take the test for an entire week, the anti-doping test, in the offseason, you pay a $25,000 fine. In track and field, you get banned for doing that. So why so lax? Well, Henry's got a clue based on his time reporting with ESPN.
A guy who was in the room for negotiating the earlier CBA, the 2011 one, he told me straight out, like, why would I want a single player to ever fail a drug test? It's like the league is essentially a marketing body. That's really primarily what they do, right? And so they take a marketing point of view here, which is we have a product and we want to shine it up. And if you see a little flaw in the product, like, please stop. Please don't say that.
Which makes sense. Look at what the steroid scandal did to the MLB. It had massive reverberations that still echo to this day. Why would any pro sports league want to go through all that? But it's here where I ask the question, which might be a potentially super controversial one, why are steroids bad?
What difference does it make if they use steroids? And they go, well, they're cheating. Right. And I go, it doesn't make you hit the ball better. He goes, well, it makes you stronger. It doesn't make you hit a curveball. What it does is you recover quicker the next day because they play every day. If I hit you with a steroid, it's gonna make you a better player. No, it's not. It's gonna make you bigger and stronger, but that doesn't make you a better player.
A majority of the players who were caught using PEDs in the NBA weren't using the anabolic steroids that make you bigger. They were using HGH, which is mostly used for recovery. In the season that's seen probably the most star games.
Recovery, because don't they play like 86, 83 games in a season, not including the playoffs? I don't even know how many games the MLB be playing. They be playing like 100 games, like that baseball niggas be playing.
Out in NBA history, if there's a substance out there that can promote healing, why not use it? That's the question that Mark Cuban asked and gave the University of Michigan $800,000 to answer in 2014. The ACL injury is a devastating injury for a multitude of reasons for a pro basketball player. But one of the biggest is that once your ACL is healed, the quad muscle for that corresponding leg doesn't come back as strong. Even if a player comes back full strength, their tendons are all good, the surrounding muscles are weaker. The study commissioned by Mark Cuban looked at basketball players who'd suffered ACL tears and provided some of them with a recovery treatment augmented by HGH. It was found that quad muscles treated with the HGH had 30% more torque, that is power, upon full recovery than those who hadn't took HGH. We haven't heard anything from this front since.
Would you be a proponent of maybe somehow, instituting protocols where HGH could be used to help guys kind of get back on the field or on the court?
Absolutely. I mean, look at it. We say it's okay for people to get LASIK for their eyes, and there's always a chance that something can go wrong. Say that you can get Tommy John surgery, or any surgery for that matter, is only performance enhancing. Tore ligament.
What surgery is that?
We don't say don't do it because it can be performance enhancing. We say let's do what's right to get you healthy again.
Then what's the argument then on not just allowing everything, including steroids?
The argument is that the World Anti-Doping Association, and in particular the Olympics, just says no. And they have so much PR sway, nobody wants to fight it. So when I bring it up at a meeting, whether it's an NBA meeting or other athletic organizations I've gone and spoken about it to, then their response is, we just don't want the PR nightmare.
Mark Cuban, on this topic of HGH in particular, he told me that he thought that with the Mavericks' new protocol, players could be in their peak to the age 50.
Dang.
I'm like, I don't know what the Mavericks' new protocol is, but come on, Mark.
Yeah.
And like around then,
age 50, LeBron is on that track.
Around
he's
that
41.
Time, he had double hip replacement surgery and was on Dancing with the Stars 5 weeks later, looking younger than ever.
Okay.
I'm not saying, but like
Henry Abbott clearly isn't on the same side as Mark Cuban here.
It feels like a little bit of a culture of cheating. It feels like you would be a little bit of a goody two-shoes if you were like, I'm not doing that. It upsets me. It has upset me for a long time. Like, if you watch track and field, you're going to hear star athletes brag about being clean. And when someone fails a drug test, they're going to be like, see, like I told you, like I'm clean. I beat that guy and he was doping. Like, do you know how hard it would be to compete with dopers when you're clean, like you would want to brag. Like it blows my mind that I'm not aware of an NBA athlete ever once bragging about being clean.
Okay, sure, but outside of moral qualms, why is this a bad thing?
But the answer is because it's very dangerous. It's, just using steroids increases your likelihood of sudden cardiac death 6 to 20 times, according to one
Cardiac
study. And
arrest.
but nobody uses just anabolic steroids, right? Like almost everybody who dopes, at least in the cycling examples, adds HGH or testosterone or other stuff. These things in combination have not been studied, but the baseline is 6 to 20 times more likelihood of sudden cardiac death. And basketball is like freakishly high rate of death. Like, NCAA Division I basketball players die at something like 10 times the rate of NFL of football players.
He's largely right, with one distinction. It's black male basketball players that are most at risk. White college basketball players are 4 times less likely to die from sudden cardiac arrest than black players. But the point still stands.
When Bronny James collapsed of sudden cardiac arrest, his teammate had done the same thing 1 year before. Like it's very common. It's a very, it's like something like 1 in 3,000 NCAA Division I players has cardiac arrest. But this is the answer to the league and to the players, is like, if you want to protect these players, many of whom have had heart problems, right? You can't ignore this factor. It's probably the biggest factor.
In the 1980s.
So LeBron James probably gave Bronny some of that stuff that he owns so he can make the thing, so he could get drafted, but his heart couldn't take it. And now I guess that's why Bronny playing so ass right now, because he getting better. Obviously, he scored his first 2 points in the playoffs, but he playing like that because he not taking the performance enhancers.
A doctor by the name of Bob Goldman conducted a survey where he asked around 200 top-class athletes if they would take a miracle drug that would allow them to win any competition they entered, but it would kill them in 5 years. 52% of them said that they would take the drug. This study's been revisited since the 80s, and the numbers weren't nearly as dramatic the next time. 6% of athletes said that they would take it even if it did kill them, and 12% of them said they would take it if it was illegal, but didn't kill them. It should be noted, by the way, that this study was funded by WADA. Take that as you will. But regardless of what the true percentage is, we know it's not zero.
Congratulations, you've assembled the most competitive, obsessive, hardworking men in the world. That's who you have here. Of course, they're going to be willing to trade some years of their life for this. So clearly they're not the ones who will self-moderate. It would be stupid. That's why they have the league. And that's why they have the rules. That's why they have the testers, right? Is so that somebody will tell them, hey man, you've done enough for today, right? Your clean workout where you got tired for 90 minutes is sufficient. You don't have to do the doped workout that lasts for 2 hours and 15 minutes, right? You can be an all-star without dope. That's a really powerful message to send a young player, right? And so I think that's where we're failing.
Now, with all of the information that I've just now presented, we once more ask the question, is LeBron James on PEDs? The answer might not be clear, but what is clear is that it's a lot easier to do it than you would think. The NBA seems to turn a willing blind eye to the whole matter, but what I think ends up murkier is the status of steroid use in our society. Is it really this evil substance that should be nowhere near the world of sport, or should it be accepted to let these NBA players deal with the ever-growing rigors of the modern game? I mean, if LeBron is using steroids, would you care? And if he is, but he would have retired 5 years ago if he was completely clean, is that really the more desirable situation? As fans, and for as LeBron as a basketball player, I think we can say that the answer is no. But as people, what should we think? Thanks for watching.
Bro, that's why Kobe retired what he did, because Kobe was not on that stuff. That's why Kobe is the best, bro. LeBron, please be clean. Don't let Bronny take that stuff no more. Oh my gosh, bro. Do y'all think LeBron is on steroids? What? I can't even, I'm scared to say it out loud.